Hi everyone, I wanted to take the opportunity to make a long format video talking all about winter parasite control. So pour yourself a cup of tea, pop your earphones in. This is probably going to be a long chatty one because there is a lot to cover when it comes to winter worming, and it can be a little bit overwhelming and there's a lot of information to take in. And if you're anything like myself, if I could just have like a friend to sit down and like chat me through it all in layman's terms so I can understand, that is sort of like what I'm going to do for you. So get comfortable, get the kettle on, I've got my cup of tea here, and let's get started. So the winter season is from late December to late March, so a little bit later than everyone sort of thinks it is, sort of like after Christmas time. So during the winter season, it is really important that we target the encysted stage of redworm. So that's what I want to start the video off with, talking about what is the encysted stage of redworm. Now, sometimes a common misconception, people when they hear encysted redworm think it's like a species within itself. The encysted redworm, okay, it is the encysted stage of small redworm. So it is a part of the small redworm's life cycle. So you have the egg, that's how it begins. Then it turns into a larval stage, so like your little wriggly worm. These then can reproduce and produce eggs. So the encysted stage is when this wriggly worm encysts into the horse's stomach, so the lining of the stomach, and here they can lay dormant. So when they are dormant, they are non-egg laying, which is really important. So think of them like a bear going into hibernation. So it's getting cold, let's all get into the lining of this horse's stomach, and we're gonna lie dormant here and wait until the spring comes, the temperatures are warmer, it's more favorable for us, and then we're going to all mass emerge come the spring. Now this can be really detrimental for your horse, and this is why we have to take proactive steps in the winter to prepare them for the spring. Now, how do we test for the encysted stage of small redworm? So as mentioned, at this stage they are non-egg laying, and that is what makes them dangerous because they are hard to detect. So your regular fecal egg count that you do throughout the year to see if your horse requires a wormer, this isn't going to work for the encysted stage, because a fecal egg count is myself counting the eggs in your horse's fecal sample. And if the encysted stage don't lay eggs, a fecal egg count isn't going to help us out. So there are two options. We can blood test for the encysted stage, or we can give our horses a proactive dose of wormer prior to the spring. So a blood test is only suitable for low risk horses. Now this is a very small percentage of horses because you have to have extremely good parasite control, okay? And anything else would be a medium to high risk horse. So we would advise that you give your horse that winter wormer prior to the spring. So you can use a very helpful tool online. I will link it. It is called CANTER, and it helps you risk assess your horse. So just for an example, a horse that would be low risk, okay, would be at a yard. It only has very limited number of horses with plenty of grass. It is poo picked every single day. There has been no presence of redworm. There's no young horses, there's no old horses. They're all middle of the road, healthy animals. They could potentially be low risk, and we would advise that they get a blood test. So this hopefully will come back low, and then their horse would not require a wormer dose. So this preserves the medication, and then it will work when we need it to. So that is the whole idea. The less we can worm, the better, so that when we need the wormer, it works for our horses. And in the wintertime, that confuses people because we are telling people to worm, because it is really important, if you're not blood testing, that you do worm your horse in the wintertime. So a horse that would be like medium to high risk, if you don't regularly poo pick, if there has been presence of redworm in your horse's sample throughout the year, even if that is low. So let's say your horse had a low fecal egg count, but it was 150 eggs per gram. So let's say the eggs were present, but it wasn't high enough to worm. That would put your horse to medium to high risk. If you're at a livery yard, if horses are coming and going all the time, if there's more than one horse per acre, if not everybody is on the same worming control program, that would bump your horse up to medium to high risk. So like I said, a very small percentage of horses are actually low risk. But if you want to have a look into that, I'll pop a little link up so you can go and check online, use CANTER and find out what risk your horse is. This is really handy to do throughout the year, and it gives you really good tips on how to improve your yard and field management as well. So another thing that we need to think about in the winter season is also tapeworm. So is your horse due a tapeworm saliva test? I'll get you one of those now. So is your horse due one of these? So how do I know if my horse is due? Okay. So if you haven't tested for tapeworm in the last 6 months, your horse will be due this winter season. Or if in the autumn time, your horse had a medium or high count and required a treatment for tapeworm, you can retest them in 3 months' time. So this winter season would be a good time to test to see if your horse has tapeworm. It is advised to test for tapeworm in the spring and the autumn because the weather conditions are more favourable, but saying we might have to worm our horses anyway, it is a good idea to test for tapeworm so that when we are giving that wormer dose, if they require a tapeworm treatment, we can just do a combination wormer. So your horse might only have to be wormed once in the year instead of them getting a winter wormer and maybe come spring, then you test and then you have to give another wormer if they require treatment for tapeworm, okay? So we spoke about the encysted stage of redworm and what it is. We have risk assessed our horses. Are they low risk? Are they high risk? Do we need to blood test or do we need to worm? And we have also considered if our horses need a tapeworm test. So we have done our tapeworm tests if we needed to. If not, we can skip on to the next step. We've done our tapeworm tests and we've got our results. We know that we need to worm our horses because they are a medium to high risk. So what do we do now? So you need to approach a qualified person to prescribe wormers. So wormers are prescription only medicines and in the UK can be advised and prescribed by a vet, a pharmacist or an SQP RAMA. I am an SQP RAMA, so I can help advise and prescribe wormers for your horses, okay? You have to have a reason to worm your horse to get a prescription. So at this time of year, the reason is to target the encysted stage of redworm. So there are only 2 chemicals that can target the encysted stage of redworm: moxidectin and a 5-day course of fenbendazole. Now, if you have a Shetland, a very underweight horse, a donkey, the 5-day course of fenbendazole is more suitable for them. But do not make these decisions on your own. Reach out to your professional, your qualified person, and they will ask you for all of the details of your horse: its age, its breed, its body weight, its condition. Are they pregnant? Are they lactating? Is it a horse? Is it a donkey? They want to know all of this information so they can make an informed decision for the appropriate wormer for your horse. So my horse Callie, I tested her for tapeworm this winter. She came back negative. She's middle of the road, she's 13, she's in good condition, a healthy horse, so I know all her details because she's my own. So Callie this winter time received a Equest wormer, the green packet Equest wormer. So that wormer covers the encysted stage of redworm because it contains moxidectin and only moxidectin, okay? The Equest Pramox, the blue packaging that you see, it also has praziquantel in it that covers tapeworm. So that is what I would have gave to her if she had a high count of tapeworm. So Callie received her green Equest wormer. Now I want to talk about how I gave that to her. So first of all, I weight taped her. I actually have them. I'll show you them. I sell them. Ta-da! So these are my gorgeous Jess Equine weight tapes. They are for sale to purchase on my website if you would like one. They are extra large for big, fat horses. And I'll open one up for you here. It actually has instructions on how to use it and a barcode so you can get straight to my website and order your horse's worm egg count test kit. So to give your horse the correct dosage of wormer, you need to know their weight. Weight bridges aren't always very accessible, so the next best thing is a weight tape. So to use a weight tape, you want to put the weight tape around the horse's barrel at the lowest part of its withers and right behind its elbow where the girth would be. So nice and snug behind the elbow to the lowest part of the wither, and that will give you like a diagonal sort of line. And you want to read the weight tape, find out what weight your horse is. This weight tape is in kg. And to make sure you are not underdosing your horse, I would always advise that you add on an extra 10%, okay? So give them that little bit extra to prevent you from underdosing, because obviously weight tapes are only an estimate and they're not as accurate as your weight bridge, and we would rather the horse have too much than too little, just in case they don't get enough and that causes resistance to that wormer. So now that you know your horse's weight, you can have a look at your wormer and see how much wormer they require. So I have an Equest box sitting here. Unfortunately, there's nothing in it, so I would love to be able to get the syringe out for you to show you. But one thing just to always check is the date on the bottom of your box to make sure it is in date, and always educate yourself and have a look in the top corner. You'll see there it says moxidectin, so you know that that is going to cover the encysted stage of redworm, or like I said, the 5-day course of fenbendazole. So this is what that looks like, and you can see that it says fenbendazole on it. So have a little look at the box and you will see here that it says fenbendazole. So this is your Equest that has moxidectin. This is your Panacure 5-day guard, which is a 5-day course of fenbendazole. And then you also have the blue Equest, which I don't have in the lab. I wish I did. And that will also cover tapeworm, okay? The blue Equest Pramox. So you would get out your syringe. It has a little dial on it that says kg, and you twist it to the weight that you need. Make sure to give them that little bit extra and pop that syringe into the horse's mouth and insert it, and try your best to do a good job so that there isn't any spit out, so none of the wormer hits the floor, because you obviously want them to receive the full dose so there isn't any underdosing, which can lead to resistance. So that's the hard part over. You have took all the steps you needed to take to find out the risk of your horse. Did they need a tapeworm treatment? You've spoke to your professional to find out what was the most appropriate wormer for them. you have wormed your horse, and now you need to know how to manage your horse after worming. So the next very important step, which is often overlooked or just people aren't educated on it enough, is how to manage your horse after you give them their wormer. So wormers are chemicals which are detrimental to the wildlife and the environment. So after we worm our horses, it is advised to keep them off grass pastures for 2 to 3 days. So this stops the chemicals from getting onto the grass. You can stable your horse, or if you have a hard standing, pop them onto the hard standing. Hard standings are great to have at your yard. I know not everybody has them, but they're really handy when it comes to things like worming, or if you're introducing a new horse onto the yard and you want to test them before you put them onto your grass pastures. So after worming for tapeworm, when the droppings go onto the grass, this can cause reinfection. It's just how the eggs are reproduced, and they are in little gravid packages, and once they get onto the grass they burst and can cause reinfection. So it is really important, if you're worming for tapeworm, to keep your horse off grass pastures. Now, not everybody has a stable and not everybody has a hard standing, so if you only have your field, the best thing that you can do is aim to worm on a dry day, so the rain doesn't wash the droppings into the grass. Confine a small area of your field and make sure you are regularly poo picking. That's the best you can sort of do in a bad situation. Now, your horse has been off grass pastures for a few days and you're going to turn them back out to the field. What field do you put them back into now that they have just been wormed? So naturally people think, I've just wormed my horse, I want to move them onto a well-rested field that hasn't been touched for 6 months so that the horse doesn't get reinfected. So this is actually the wrong thing to do. So the best thing to do is turn that horse back out onto its original grass pasture. And the reason why we do this, if you think your horse has just been wormed and the only parasites that will survive are the resistant ones, so if you take your horse to a new field that has been well rested and has no parasites on it, and you put your horse in there, the resistant worms will be on that grass and only the resistant worms. The best thing to do is pop them onto their original grass pasture so that the resistant worms can reproduce with the non-resistant worms. And then down the line, if you want to move them onto new pasture, then you can do that. So you've wormed your horse, you've gave them some time off the grass pasture, now they're back out onto the field, and now we need to think about reduction tests, okay? So I will get you a fecal egg count reduction test now. So here we have a fecal egg count reduction test. So 10 to 14 days after worming, take a fecal sample, take lots of different pinches across a fresh dropping and pop that into your sample box and post it to the lab where I can test it to check that there is no further presence of redworm. So ideally I want to check that sample to make sure it has a low count and no further treatment is required. Now if your horse came back and it had a medium to high count, maybe there was a reason for wormer failure, maybe the horse didn't receive enough, maybe it is resistant, and we would have to then look into giving that horse a different type of wormer prior to the spring. And if you treated for tapeworm, you will need to carry out another tapeworm test, but you can only do this in 3 months' time after treating for tapeworm. So you won't have to worry about that until the spring. So during the winter, when is the best time to target the encysted stage of redworm? So ideally, we don't want to do it too early, just in case our horses get reinfected before spring arrives. So ideally, you want to do it later in the winter time. So when I'm making this video at the moment, it is February. So we have had consecutive days under 6 degrees. We've had a few mornings of a real good frost that will help to kill off any parasites on the grass, and it will slow down their activity. So later on in the winter time would be the best time to target the encysted stage of redworm to prevent that reinfection prior to the spring. So if the encysted stage of redworm isn't targeted during the winter, come the spring, that potentially will put that horse's health and welfare at risk. So you think all of these redworms have encysted in this horse's stomach, the temperatures rise and they mass emerge in their millions. So they have this influx of parasites in their system. It can make them really ill. It can make their droppings become loose. It can make them lethargic, make them lose loads of condition. And in worst case scenario, it can bring on colic episodes and can be detrimental and sometimes even leads to death. Now, don't want to scare anyone, but that is the reality of the situation, and that is why we want to target this dangerous stage of redworm so that our horses are safeguarded prior to the spring. So that is what I mean by there is a lot to take on. So I hope I have covered everything when I watch this footage back and edit it in some sort of format for you all. So I actually didn't do a very good job at introducing myself at the start. So if you are new here, my name is Jess. I own Jess Equine and I specialise in equine parasite control. So this is my lab where I offer fecal egg count and equisol saliva testing. I am qualified, so I'm a registered animal medicine advisor and I can advise and prescribe wormers to equine animals. So if you'd like to avail of my services throughout the year, please do. I will attach a link to my webpage. You can join me on my social medias where I will keep you up to date throughout the seasons. Join my emailing list where I can send you newsletters and all the information you need to know throughout the year about your horse's parasites. I hope you found this video helpful. I enjoyed recording it. I much rather recording things in long format than short format, and hopefully I can do another one come the spring season and we can talk all about spring parasite control and maybe some yard and field management tips, which I think would be very helpful. So thank you for watching and I'll talk to you all again soon. Winter packages are available on my website. They include winter worming advice if you are not blood testing for the encysted stage of small redworm, alongside my seasonal worm count test kits throughout the year in the spring, summer and autumn at www.jessequine.weebly.com.